The reward of Siyam is amazing. And the Prophet ﷺ, he says, "Man sama yawman fi sabilillah," whoever fasts one day for the sake of Allah, بَاعَدَ اللَّهُ بِذَلِكَ الْيَوْمِ النَّارَ عَنْ وَجْهِهِ سَبْعِينَ خَرِيفًا. Allah would remove from his face, as a result of that fast, hellfire by a distance of 70 huge ditches. 70 huge ditches. Or 70 seasons. Meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with every single day that you fast, fi sabilillah, for the sake of Allah. And that includes Ramadan. This hadith is not just talking about fast done outside of Ramadan. That includes Ramadan. When you do that fast right, every single night when you break your fast, the Prophet ﷺ says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has utaqa, people that He frees from the hellfire altogether. Every single night He redeems people from the hellfire in Ramadan. So with every single day you're distancing yourself from hellfire with 70 kharifa, with 70 ditches or seasons away from it. And in one narration the Prophet ﷺ said a distance of a journey of 70 years. And so the ulama said, imagine a ditch, like that would take an entire year from getting into it to getting out of it. Imagine a ditch that would take an entire year. And what it shows you, subhanAllah, the reason why the word kharifa is used, some of the scholars said, is because it doesn't just take you a year to get past it. You have to actually toil to get through it. You're walking, you're going through a slope and so on and so forth to get yourself out of it. Allah put 70 of those between you and hellfire. Now subhanAllah, it's shocking. It truly is. That in that same context, that same reward, there's a punishment equivalent to it. And this hadith is very scary. The Prophet ﷺ said, also narrated by Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu, إِنَّ الرَّجُلْ لَيَتَكَلَّمْ بِالْكَلِمَةِ مِنْ سَخَةِ اللَّهِ. A person says a word that's displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They let a word escape their mouth that's displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لَا يَرَى بِهَا بَأْسًا. He doesn't consider it. He's completely unaware of the consequences of that word. Meaning, even as he's saying that word, this is interesting because the idea here is that you're not even considering it a sinful word. You're saying it and you think it's completely normal. You think it's completely acceptable because the company around you is as filthy or filthier than you with their tongues. Or they don't say anything when you say those things. There's no change in people's faces or their facial expressions. And usually we allow societal approval to be conflated with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's approval. Societal norms become acceptable and we automatically, put that into the halal category even though we don't have the right to do so. So لَا يَرَى بِهَا بَأْسًا. A person says this word and they're really not even thinking about it. They don't even think that it's sinful in the first place. فَيَهْوِي بِهَا فِي نَارِ جَهَنَّمَ سَبْعِينَ خَرِيفًا. The Prophet ﷺ says that causes him to plunge into the hellfire. That one word that he let escape his mouth causes him to plunge into hellfire the distance of 70 ditches. SubhanAllah, the exact same punishment is used as an equivalence to that which is done in fasting. The reward that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you in fasting, even though this hadith is not even in the books of fasting. But if you take these two hadiths together, it gives you something very significant. In another narration, the Prophet ﷺ says, يَنْزِلُ بِهَا فِي النَّارِ أَبْعَدَ مَا بَيْنَ الْمَشْرِقِ وَالْمَغْرِبِ. That one word that he says allows him to fall into the hellfire a distance that is greater than the distance between the east and the west. What is the message here? And how do we take these hadiths together, even though these hadiths are traditionally not correlated? What the Prophet ﷺ describes to us on the Day of Judgment is that a nasty tongue is enough to invalidate your entire life's worth of good deeds. A nasty tongue is enough to invalidate all of your Ramadans. Not only your Ramadans, all of your salahs, your hajj, your laylatul qadr, your sadaqah, all of it. And subhanAllah, that's a woman, for example, that was abusive to her neighbors with her tongue. Imagine a person who's abusive to his spouse. Imagine a person who's even abusive to his parents. Right? If a woman, her siyam and her sadaqah and her salah is invalidated altogether by a nasty tongue to her neighbors who are not even her family members, what about the people that are even closer to you than that? So the Prophet ﷺ describes to us the scene on the Day of Judgment where a person sees all of their hasanat taken away from them in front of their eyes. And you have to see the people that you've assaulted with your tongue taking your hasanat from you until you're left with absolutely nothing, and they're putting their sins on you. So the Prophet ﷺ has already illustrated to us the power of a nasty tongue, what it's able to do for, against us on the Day of Judgment and invalidate not just our fasting, but all of our good deeds. But subhanAllah, take these two hadiths together. Every day of fasting, you have an opportunity to either be distanced from the hellfire by a distance of 70 ditches, each one of them taking an entire year to travel, or to plunge into the hellfire by a distance of 70 years, or 70 ditches, which is like 70 years. You're literally being given, subhanAllah, that margin every single day. You're either going this way, away from the hellfire, or you're going down into the hellfire. And it takes a word. And subhanAllah, what is a word compared to a day of long fasting? Right? Think about that. So it puts us in a mindset where I really need to watch what my tongue is going to say and what my tongue is going to do on that day of fasting and within that month of Ramadan, so that I don't end up messing up this entire opportunity that's been given to me.